Okay, we're going live on the TikTok here. You gotta join mine, or did you go live on it already?
Well, you both have to join each other.
Just go ahead and go out of it and then go to my profile. It should be on there live. Yep.
Okay, and I'm gonna join. I'm gonna invite Emily and shifts and sessions. You're gonna have to invite Emily. I can't invite her. We're not friends.
Okay.
Did you hit save?
Save for what?
I just told you gotta hit save on TikTok if you want it to record it.
I don't know where save is.
There should be a spot where I don't know what that does now. Pause live. That's so weird.
Campaign.
It said you could save it. Stop trying to follow me. Okay, well, anyway. Hosts. Add hosts. Here we go.
Add host. Invite.
No, we don't want to do that. Co-host with creators. Let me see. Friends.
Should have had all this stuff done.
You can't do it until you go live. That's what I'm telling you. It won't let me invite him. It's not giving me an option. Let's see. Okay, it won't let me invite him for some reason.
Okay.
He's blacked out. Like it won't.
Can you go out of that live again?
Okay, get off of that. Settings.
He's in the request, so.
Okay, well, hold on one second. Okay, there's Emily. Let me invite her really quick.
Well, before you do that, let's get him on here.
Okay. Guess. Oh yeah, here we go. Accept. Okay, and then we want to invite me.
Live on YouTube.
There we go.
Can we add him as a host? Put his camera up.
He has to have his camera on, I think.
Do you have your camera on? No battles.
That's not what I was trying to do.
That's working.
I was trying to get, I don't know why it's not letting me save it. Okay, well, shit.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, this is the first time doing this, so it's got some technical issues.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, all right.
Accept.
All right. Hi, buddy. All right. So we got you on there now. I can see you on there.
There we go.
Just getting all set up. And, it's kind of a debacle doing this for the first time. So hopefully everybody that's coming on just have a little bit of patience with us. We're working on the technical difficulties right now.
Good old technical difficulties.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. I think we might have that done and out of the way. If you want to get started, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce us, and then we could just roll from there and see what kind of reactions we get from people. I know we're going to have to keep track of our guests that come on the live feed. Excuse me. So I'll have to try to keep track of both of you. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a joint collaboration with 8158 Podcast, Stories of Sacrifice, and also the Debrief with Tyler Burns. And I am Rico. How's it going, Tyler?
It's going good, man. Going good. Can't complain. Hopefully everybody can hear me on TikTok. I kind of brought it a little closer to myself, so.
Okay. Yeah. So, can everybody hear Tyler pretty good? So.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Good deal.
Yeah. Cool. Outstanding. Like I said, this is 8158 Podcast with Rico and also the Debrief with Tyler Burns. We both run podcasts. He has an amazing podcast. They kind of align up with similar aspects and similar traits and situations. So some situations may be a little emotional. We are going to be very sensitive to the TikTok rules. So, but you guys will have an opportunity to kind of give your feedback and have a voice as well. And we'll try to do our best to kind of engage with you while we're doing this live collaboration.
Trying to make it work on two different programs at the same time. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. We'll make it happen. You know, I mean, this is the first time for me, and obviously it's the first time for you to do this on both ends of the spectrum. Obviously, this is my first podcast. I can't remember how many episodes we're in right now and how many are waiting to be dropped. I know we're nearing the 40s right now, so.
Nice. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of TikTok live. No particular reason why. I probably should, to be honest. I've done YouTube live a few times, but giving it a whirl.
Right. So one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you is you have a background in first responder, right?
I do. I have I've done just about every job within public safety at one point or another. So I started my career off in, I was a firefighter for 10 years. I was a EMT for about 8 years, 6 or 8 years. I worked as a correctional officer at a prison for a while. I was a 911 dispatcher for a little while. Done quite a bit. The only thing I wasn't was a police officer.
Okay. So you had quite a career in that field. I myself have not been a first responder. However, a lot of my family were military and worked in the first responder field. My cousin was a sheriff's deputy for 12 years and also a military veteran of 20 years. My brother was a Marine. My uncle, he was in the Marines. I had an uncle that was in the Navy, and my grandfather fought in World War II in the Marines. And my grandfather on my mother's side fought in World War II in the Army. So, and my step grandfather, who was a police detective growing up as a child. So, and my dad was a firefighter. So, I pretty much grew up around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I a lot of my family was also in the military. My grandfather, he was in the Navy during Vietnam. My great grandfather was in the Army in World War II and was actually captured when they were fighting in one of the battles in Africa, trying to go after Rommel. And yeah, he got captured, and he didn't talk about it a whole lot, which was pretty common with World War II veterans. But from what I had talked about, or what I had talked with my grandmother about, was he was in a POW camp for I think a couple years, and when he got out, he ended up he only weighed about 175, 180 pounds when he went in. But when he got out, he was like a $130, $120,
Right.
somewhere around there. I guess there was a guy that was in a camp next to them. We're not really sure how far away, but I guess that guy was sneaking off in the middle of the night and would bring food to my grandpa just to keep him alive. We have no idea who the guy was either.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, I know they went through a lot, and they fought hard, they fought well, and they did their job. Man, you got to give it up to them, gentlemen. They are definitely our heroes, aside from the heroes that are working day in and day out to protect us and to, protect our properties and to preserve our lives and all of those things. And I hope that through this, that a lot of more people would appreciate what they do, because our first responders are there to help us. And a lot of them, there might be some bad apples, but you know what? There's bad apples in everything. But the majority of officers and firefighters and EMS and first responders, they do an absolute amazing job at what they do.
100%.
So today we want to talk to our guests, and we would like to tell you guys why this is very important to us in this collaboration, why this conversation matters. And the conversation matters is because we are dealing with, specifically at this moment, our mental health and the PTSD and the first responder culture. So what is your take on the PTSD and the first responder culture with the mental health issues that are going on?
So PTSD within public safety is still kind of a fairly new concept. And in fact, I don't even really love saying PTSD. I would prefer to call it PTS, post-traumatic stress. I don't look at it as a disorder, right? It's something that it's something that it's kind of like a badge that you get from all the crap that you see constantly and all the crap that you deal with. But right now in public safety, police, fire, and EMS, you have a higher chance of, insert word that we're not allowed to say, than you do from line of duty.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you have a higher chance of, can we say unalive?
Unalive is appropriate.
Yeah. You have a higher chance of unaliving than you do in the line of duty. And that's a concern, right? It continues to grow. The problem is a lot of times there's no preparation for it, right? It kind of just hits you all at once. So I have been diagnosed with PTS from all the crap that I dealt with. I worked for a city EMS service, probably it's the second largest city in the state of Indiana. And I didn't get to that point, but things were bad. Like I could see, I was angry all the time. I was more stressed when I was at home than I was at work. Like when I was at work, I was in the calm. I could make decisions instantly. I had control of things. When I was at home, I felt like I didn't have any control. And unfortunately, the family's the ones that, they take the brunt end of all of that. But the problem is we have systems in place. There's just about every department in the country, almost every department in the country has they have a peer support group set up, but that's post-incident. No, there's not very many people that are talking with the exception of a few big names that are talking to firefighters, police officers, paramedics, getting them prepared for what to do when you get to that situation ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, it seems like they don't have a lot of readiness or preparedness for that before you get into it. I mean, you'd think they would have some kind of a class that kind of prepare you for, before you dive into the field and kind of get you mentally prepared for, the mental health aspect of it. Because I know it's got to be really tough. It's got to be really hard with PTS. I know some people call it PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, because it's an injury to the brain. Post-traumatic stress, I mean, it's all fitting. PTSD, I agree with you. It's not a disorder. It's something that has happened to you. It's something that you've lived through, a traumatic incident, a traumatic situation that has injured your mind to the point that has affected you not only mentally but physically.
Yeah, and it's getting better. There's a particular individual by the name of Travis Howes that is very well known within the public safety community, and he goes around across the country and he has conversations with, the different departments within public safety, and he does an extraordinary job at helping get people prepared ahead of time. And I think the big thing is trying to find that balance of, you want to prepare rookies for what they're going to see, but you don't want to scare them away, right? So
Yeah.
we want them in the field. We need them in the field, where every department across the country is hurting to find people. So we don't want to scare them away, but we also don't want them to get to a point where they feel like they're too far gone. And that was one of the big things with me. The first time I ever went to speak with somebody, with a counselor, I specifically told them that I did not want a diagnosis, because my fear was if I had that label put on me, and I know there's tons of people across the country that still feel this way, but if I had that label put on me, I felt like that was going to be a hindrance in getting into another department.
Okay.
Police, they feel this way more than even the fire service does, because if a police officer goes and says, mentally I'm not okay, I need help, and they get put on light duty or whatever the case may be, they get treated the same way in some aspects. They get treated the same way as somebody who is on paid administrative leave because they're being investigated for something they did in the field. So they get their gun taken away, they get their badge taken away. They have to go do light duty work, which everybody's going to see them doing light duty, and everybody's going to know why they're in it. So it makes things difficult for police, especially.
Exactly. I don't know what could be done to change that kind of culture. I've never lived in that culture. But I mean, I would be a very big advocate in helping to make that change, and maybe just talking about it and trying to bring it to light might help with making the change with that kind of culture to normalize it, I guess.
Yeah. My fear right now is, and this isn't every fire chief, every police chief, this isn't every administrator, but my fear is that every department is creating these peer support groups, but I'm worried that it's going to get oversaturated. I'm worried that it's going to get to the point where they create these groups, but they're not really changing anything else, right? Like they create a peer support organization for those really bad calls, but not everybody who goes on those bad calls are instantly struggling with it. as soon as the call's done. Sometimes it can take days or weeks or months or even years before they start having issues.
Right.
I tell everybody the best thing you can do is to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a counselor. It doesn't have to be a peer support person. It should be somebody that you trust, somebody that you have respect for.
Mm-hmm.
Family, and this is a whole nother topic that we can get to in a little bit. Family, you should talk to your family as well. But everybody always says, well, my wife doesn't understand, or my husband doesn't understand because they don't do the job. Well, they don't understand because you don't allow them to understand. You don't have that conversation with them. You don't tell them what it is that you do. Right. EMS is really bad about that. I can't tell you how many times I would come home and my wife would ask me, so how was your shift? Oh, it was fine. Just drove around. That's why half the community thinks that all we do is drive ambulances, because we don't tell them what we actually do unless you've ever been on an ambulance before.
Right. Unless you live the life or have been gone through it, then, you really can't say for sure.
Right. 100%.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say, but it's all out of ignorance. It's not something that they have gone through, and I imagine that's pretty tough when you hear certain comments or certain things come along your way, and people say negative things, and they don't know. They're ignorant, not in a bad way. It's just they don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of people, myself included, I always did this. Somebody would come up and they would talk to you, whether it's at a party, whether it's whatever, doesn't matter. They'd come up and say, "Oh, you're a firefighter. Oh, you're a medic. What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" And a lot of people in the field hate it when civilians ask that question, and myself included. I used to hate that when I was asked that, because my mentality was, I don't want to relive it. I don't want to push that on you, so now you have to suffer. But what we don't understand is that is an opening. That is an opportunity to talk about that call that may be causing problems for you. That is an opportunity to get it off your chest, get it out of your head, and share what it is that's bothering you. But we don't typically want to look at it that way. We look at it as, well, this is a civilian that has no idea. They just want to know the gory details of our job. And that may be true, but at the end of the day, you can't look at it that way. You got to look at it as an opportunity.
Right. To kind of share with them that, it's not always what it's cracked up to be, or just some of the details and not all of the gory details.
Right. And you see these TV shows like Cops, or what was the one where they followed fire trucks and ambulances? Live PD was one.
Yeah.
There was like a police or EMS where they followed around and went on calls with them, but
like night watch.
They show and went on calls with them, but
like night watch, something like that.
Yeah, night watch.
Night watch.
They show stuff like that, and but people don't understand. Like, they're not gonna show you everything. They're not gonna show you the 5 kids that were running from the cops at 130 miles an hour that went airborne into a tree and they all died. They're not gonna show you that stuff. They're not gonna show you, somebody who's got. I don't know if I could say that, but somebody who got unalived by 30 different projectiles. They're not going to show you that either. They're only going to show you the things that they can get away with on cable TV, but doesn't make it rated R. They're going to keep it PG as much as they can.
Right. Anything that excites them enough to keep them watching, but not gory enough to kind of get themselves into trouble.
Exactly. And I've got a buddy who's been on the first 48. He's been on the first 48 ever since they started. Yeah, he's one of the detectives, Jason White from Tulsa PD, and
Oh, wow.
he'll tell you the same thing. Like, they're not going to show you everything; they just show you enough just to keep your interest peaked.
Right. Yeah. So, Tyler, he definitely has quite a bit of experience in the field. He's done it for a number of years with fire and EMS and stuff. So he definitely has some stories in the field. I mean, if he wouldn't mind sharing some of those minor stories or nothing in great detail, I mean, he's more than welcome to do that. And then we can talk more about the stigma behind some PTSD and PTSI or PTS.
Yeah, so I kind of started sharing the one a little bit. That was actually my last call working for the city in EMS. There was about 5 kids that were running from the police, and they were doing about 130 miles an hour. They crossed over and went through an intersection, and went airborne. Vehicle went into a tree, and you couldn't even tell what kind of vehicle it was. Like, the vehicle was destroyed. Everybody got ejected from the vehicle. Probably,
oh my gosh,
3 out of the 5 became one with the tree, to the point where when fire got on scene, they had to actually like carve into the tree to be able to get them out.
Holy moly.
One person was laying on the sidewalk next to the vehicle, and another one had traveled probably about 50 feet into a house, where actually a part of that vehicle had also traveled along the side with that individual and had hit the gas line of that house. In fact, my partner and I on the ambulance, we were the first ones on scene, and police were right behind us. And as soon as I parked my vehicle and started basically trying to get the general public out of the way, this rookie police officer, he picked the wrong day to talk to me because I was already in a bad mood. But he comes up and starts screaming and hollering at me, telling me what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I'll be honest, I went off on him and I said, dude, I've got more hazmat experience, more fire experience. I've got more experience than you do in your left leg at this point, because you are brand spanking new. Don't tell me how to do my job. Go over there and block traffic and keep people out of this area. And I said it right in front of his sergeant. And I looked at his sergeant and he's just chuckling and walks away. I eventually apologized to the sergeant. I said, I'm sorry. I should not have gone off on your rookie like that. And he goes, nope, he deserved it. It needed to happen. I said, okay. Yeah. I don't even know if that guy still works for the police department or not, but crazy stuff, man. But we had a great relationship with police, though, too. Like, there were times where we would get, patients that were, they were on some kind of insert drug here, and they were extremely combative, and they would fight with us. And there was a lot of them that I was very good friends with that they were very like, no, you got this. You take care of it. Like, no, come on, step in and do your job. Like, I'm not fighting anybody today. Right. That was just kind of the relationship we had with each other. And at the end of the day, we would all be there to help each other out too.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I know there's kind of like that dynamic between police and fire, and that the friendly fire type of thing, the competition, who's better.
Yeah, and I used to say that public safety is a brotherhood, especially in the fire service. For reasons that we can get into later, I don't look at it that way anymore. However, public safety is like a big family, to the point where we'll pick on each other. We'll pick on police. Fire will pick on EMS, vice versa,
right.
Whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, if somebody picks on, a civilian picks on a police officer, or a civilian picks on a firefighter, we're going to have each other's back. We're going to stick up for each other. It's just like two brothers fighting, like an older brother and a younger brother. Older brother's going to pick on the younger brother, but as soon as somebody else steps in and starts doing the same thing, it's game on.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine, having that dynamic with the police and the fire. It's a love-hate relationship, but you got to have that dynamic. It's inevitable, but just like growing up, like you said, big brother, you're always going to fight. You're always going to have disagreements.
I mean, my sister still wants to fight with me all the time, so there's that. She's older than me.
Your sister's right all the time, so just so you know.
Yeah, that's what she tells me. She's going to listen to this, and she's going to give me so much crap.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah. Some other talking points that we were going to go over is we were going to kind of touch back with some stats around PTSI and the stigma within the departments. Myself, I am no stranger to suffering from any type of mental health issues. I have childhood traumas that I've gone through for many years and am now starting to kind of overcome them through medications and therapies and stuff. But there's a lot of pride going on, and I didn't want to face it until I got older, until somebody, I'm not going to name who, girl in the yellow dress, decided to tell me that I needed to get help. So I did.
Smart girl.
Yeah. And it's helped out tremendously, but we're looking at other avenues to kind of help to cope with a lot of those issues as well. But what's your take on the stigma within the departments dealing with this situation?
So the stigma still exists, right? Like I had mentioned earlier, for police officers, it's a little bit more difficult for them, or at least they feel it's more difficult for them to have that conversation. And again, this is not an all-encompassing every department across the country, because every department is different. But a lot of them feel like they can't necessarily have that conversation
Right.
for fear of, persecution, or fear of being treated like they just did something wrong. In general, in public safety, a lot of people don't want to have that conversation and say, I need help, because it's always been instilled in us that we have to be strong for our patients. We have to be there for them. We have to be ready for that next call. There may be like that call that I was telling you about. If that would have been the start of my shift, it may have bothered me. And I may have been, more than likely, I would have been like, well, I got to shove it down and move on to the next call. And the way I described it to everybody, there's this box inside my brain. And this box is like full of files from all of the crap that I've seen over the years. And every time you deal with something, you shove it in that box and then you lock it. Well, every once in a while, that lid wants to come open. So now you got to lock it and put some chains around it. Well, then it wants to come back open again. So now you got to put some chains on it, and you got to put a bowling ball on top of it. You just keep piling crap on top of it just to keep it closed.
Right.
Until one day when you least expect it, and it's usually at a time where you don't want it to happen, it's going to burst wide open in front of everybody, and you're either going to lose your sanity, you're just going to start bawling your eyes out, or you're going to just go off, or whatever. Something's going to happen. Everybody's different. But it's always going to happen at a time where you don't want it to happen.
Right.
That's the best way that I've explained it to people. And I've had that happen in front of a group of bikers at a motorcycle ride, a charity ride, where I just lost it because a call came in for a run that I had dealt with 2 weeks prior. And I just lost it in front of all of these big burly bikers. And some of my best friends came, a couple of my best friends came and stood right in front of me to shield me from everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I kind of remember you telling us that story before, and I imagine that was pretty hard for you to cope with, hearing the call and then having to relive a similar situation.
Yeah, that was a tough call. That was obviously I've received some tremendous help from that call, thanks to EMDR and some pretty amazing individuals. But that was a call where it was a family inside like a minivan SUV, and they went through. They came up to a stop sign. The cross traffic had the right of way, and the cross traffic that had the right of way, there was a tow truck that was driving by. Well, the driver in the family vehicle had ran the stop sign and got T-boned T-boned the tow truck. Tow truck flipped. The family's vehicle also flipped, but landed on its tires. The mom in that car, she was in the front seat with the oldest daughter sitting on her lap. They did not have a seatbelt on. Daughter got ejected through the windshield. And that was rough. Daughter was laying in the middle of the street when I got on scene. That sat with me for quite a while. So 2 weeks later, when I see the page for the exact same intersection, exact same description, exact same time of day, and I'm at an event with a bunch of bikers, I'm like, oh crap, here we go. In fact, I just got I saw a notification on Facebook today saying that there was another crash at that intersection. This has been 6 years now.
So
horrible intersection.
They got to do something about that intersection.
We've been telling them that for 10 to 15 years, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, I know where I work, we have a number of bad intersections, and they are working on them. They've been putting in those roundabouts, eliminating the lights and putting in the roundabouts, but there's one intersection in particular that is close to where our yard is, and I personally witnessed a T-bone accident right in front of me as I was turning to go into the yard. I was just waiting for the cross traffic, and it was an elderly man and I guess his granddaughter, and fortunately for them, they survived, and the people that T-boned them, they were okay. And I also had it on camera because I have a dash cam in my truck, which I provided myself because I want to protect myself and the company. It's a small company. They don't put dash cams in their vehicles, but it's something I decided to do for myself to protect myself. And because there's a lot of crazy drivers out there, people, they like to pull out, they hit their brakes in front of you. It's hard to stop 80,000 pounds. And, I don't want to be responsible for hurting anyone. That's my number one concern and priority is, being safe and making sure that everybody else is safe. And if you're driving crazy, I want to make sure I have proof. But,
yeah.
Back to that story, I did have that recorded, and I handed the SD card over to law enforcement so they can do their investigation. So that was pretty awesome, and I was there to help them, deal with that until, medical and fire got there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and now the Ring door cameras are helping police quite a bit. So if anybody's got one of those doorbell cameras, you know, whenever there's any kind of incident, car accident, anything like that, those can be very helpful with those investigations too.
Yeah. Yeah, we have several cameras around our house. We just got a new security alarm system. We had the Ring. We still have it. And we still have the cameras for the Ring on the outsides, but we got 2 new cameras and another security system for the doorbell that we just got into that alarms the house. And if anybody breaks a window, if they open the door, then everything just goes off and then they call us immediately. They call police, actually. And plus we got the fire detector ones too. They put next to the fire detectors. So it alarms the fire department. I think it's a cool little system.
Yeah.
So like he's got some difficulties there.
No, I was checking to see if there was a way, because I just realized that this may not be showing up on my TikTok page, and I was seeing if there was a way I could share it on mine.
You should be able to at the bottom right corner. It should have an arrow to share.
Yeah.
Kind of get people involved. Yeah, I'm trying to get other people here. Get people kind of getting them involved, and hopefully they show up. But I know people get busy and they doing their thing, and you know, it's hard. And a lot of people do things at night, which is funny because you know we have to work during the day. I have to work during the day, so it's hard to stay up late at night to get on lives and do all that stuff. Plus, you know, the housework around the house and all that stuff. You know, so it's work after work.
Hey, Rico.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Rico.
There was something I was going to say.
Can you hear me?
I don't remember what it was.
Did it have anything to do with the stigmas or anything?
Well, so there's this website that I encourage everybody to go to. It's called firsthelp.org. Number 1, sthelp.org. And on there, it actually has the numbers of the amount of unalives for specifically for public safety. And it actually includes corrections, dispatchers, EMS, fire, law enforcement, military, and public defenders. And you can actually check the different boxes of what you want to see. So, like I'll put, So I'll put EMS, fire, and law enforcement. And then you can select the year too.
So it gives you the statistics?
Yeah, it gives you the statistics. So 2022 for those 3 jobs was the worst year in the last 5 years that we've had, with 212.
Oh my gosh.
So far in 2025, we're at 55.
And we we're not even halfway through the year yet.
Yeah. But it breaks it down. It breaks it down by gender, by race, years of service, which is quite interesting. So for EMS, the average years of service for those individuals was over 10 years. Firefighter was over 14 years. And law enforcement over 16 years. Then it also breaks it down and says, first responders who were military veterans. EMS was 26. Firefighters were 100. Such tiny print. 125, but law enforcement was 1,324.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so
Highest of all.
it provides a lot of good detail. So I highly recommend people check that out. There's a lot of good information on there.
Okay.
Oh, I can do that.
Tyler, can you hear me?
Oh, why is it stopped? Oh, what's going on here?
I think they can't hear me because they're connected to
Recording has stopped.
their equipment.
That makes sense.
So they
Okay, so I got one headphone in for my phone and one headphone in for. I
Uh-oh.
just lost him on YouTube.
Tyler, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, he has to take off his headphones so that he can hear me.
I think I lost him on the computer.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. We got it on here. Can you hear me though?
I think I might have lost you on the computer. Can you hear me now?
Rico, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before you guys got too far into like what you're talking about, I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that Emily was here and she wanted to participate. So I wanted to give her a chance to introduce herself.
Okay, well, disconnecting my headphones disconnected the recording, so
That's okay.
I'll have to go back and join you in the studio again.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I can hear you. So Emily, apparently she wants to participate. So we're going to go ahead and let Emily speak her piece and see what she has to say. Go ahead, Emily.
Hey guys, so I was on the dispatch side off and on since 2008. So I've been in the field. I started in the wonderful city of Durham. So for any of my Durham people that are seeing this, glad that they came to watch. I did a couple years there. I've been involved in everything from officer-involved shootings to self-inflicted unalivings and all of the sorts. So especially then, the stigma and the PTSD was real. Tyler, you probably know, you were told, hey, leave work at work, drop it off at the door on your way out, and pick up home and take it with you, which is what I experienced. And then in my smaller agency here in Western North Carolina, I took a call in the middle of the night one night for a self-inflicted unaliving, and I asked for mental health help and was told, that they didn't think that I experienced enough of the situation to need it. So that's kind of where I came from, and now I'm specifically a first responder therapist, so I can speak to a lot of the upcoming stuff more so, but just so y'all know where I'm coming from.
That's awesome. Yeah, I 100% understand where you're coming from on that. I used to get told all the time that, well, it's not your emergency, so you need to move on. Like old school mentality, right? And unfortunately, there's still a lot of departments across the country that still act like that. They still tell people that. That's wild.
They do, and I'm on the therapist side of things, I'm noticing younger departments have less stigma, but these older departments that still have people who have been in 15, 20, 25 years that are sticking it out for the long haul, that's where the hardest stigma is to break.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Emily, do you feel like with the experiences that you've gone through, do you feel like that's predominantly the reason why most first responders suffer in silence and don't reach out for help?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're told, from day one, like he said, this isn't your emergency, so deal with it, move on, take the next call. And, in high volume areas, it can be back to back for your whole 12-hour shift or 10-hour shift. And you're just expected to deal with it and move on. And unless it's something major, and by major, I mean like officer involved something, then it doesn't get as much attention as it probably should. So it's just, I can tell you my first call as a 911 operator, my very first day on the floor, like the way they start you out is you answer alarm lines. So your home burglar alarm calls into an alarm company, that alarm company calls us. So you answer that line first because it's supposed to be easy, right? Somehow, and we never figured out how, someone accidentally shot themselves in the chest while they were cleaning out their gun. And they called through, and the call got to me as like a day 2 call taker. First time I had really ever done anything person. And I still had to keep going. And that the mentality then is, or was, hey, like, he did it to himself, you need to move on. And you kept going. So it's a lot of forced continuation. Later that year, I had an officer involved shooting, and that one got me pulled off the floor for like 30 minutes to be sure I was okay, and then I was stuck right back out there. So it's very much a situation where it's not given the time it needs to be given when it happens.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, I think dispatchers have it in a lot of ways have it worse than fire, EMS, and even police, because a lot of people are looking at dispatch as, well, you're on a phone, you're not on the scene, right? And that's the wrong way to look at it. Again, I worked in dispatch, and I can tell you, I had an active shooter call that I took at a nightclub, and you could actively hear the shots ringing out throughout or through the phone, and it messed with me because that was probably my second or third week on my own. Uh, for us as brand new dispatchers, you were just the 911 call taker. You took all 911 calls and put it into the system. That was it, and you had to do that for, if you were on the city side, because they consolidated the two. If you were on the city side, you would do that for, I think it was about a year. And after a year, your probation time was up, and then you could go and train on how to be police dispatcher and work your way to the fire dispatch, all those sorts of things. But
It's definitely difficult. I did fire and EMS dispatch was my primary thing, and I would be on the phone taking a 911 call while I have a working structure fire, and it's not easy, and there's a lot of stuff to learn. But then you've got, like, you worry about your people in the field because it's kind of your responsibility to bring them home. But then also you've got this person in your ear having the worst day of their life.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, that's a valid point.
Most definitely. And Emily, how have you dealt with your, I would say your traumas? Because I can't say that you suffer from PTSI because I don't know your story personally. So I'm just gonna say, and just assume that you have a set of traumas having to deal with your job in your field from being a dispatcher. So how do you deal with your traumas?
So until I had the last event that propelled me to go into school to be a therapist, I shoved it all in a box, just like everybody else does. Shove it, but eventually the box overfills. So my internship was at a place called Responder Support Services. They only provide therapy for first responders, military, and their spouses. I did my internship there, and within the first couple weeks, sitting while I watched my mentor lead sessions, I couldn't sit through a session without being a basket case. And I talked to her and decided to go get my own therapy. I have job related PTSD and some other things, as anybody does who witnesses that many traumas, in a shift. So, therapy was one of the best things that I could have ever done for myself. I wish I would have known then or at any point in my career about responder support services, because they were a great asset to many people. They still are a great asset to many people. So,
Emily, do any of the agencies where you're at, do any of them do they do peer support at all?
so we have a regional peer support team. For the western part of the state, we have our own. There's not like a direct peer support team in each agency, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have something very similar. There's So in the northeastern part, really all over the whole state, but in the northeastern part, there's a peer support team. They call them
Hi.
crisis intervention something group, but they very similar situation. They will get called out. So if a
How are
fire
you, Dale?
chief or whatever, if a who is that?
Oh,
If a fire chief calls out an issue to dispatch, then dispatch can call over to that team and have a responder come out to that department or agency or whatever, and they can do a debrief or whatever the case may be. But and they also have resources too. At least this organization does. They have resources too, where if the debrief wasn't enough for you and you feel like you need to go talk to more professional help, then they'll guide you into somebody that specifically works with first responders, military, that sort of thing. But that's the problem, though. There's not a whole lot of people out there that specialize with first responders.
There's not, and the ones that do don't understand. The biggest complaint that I get is, hey, I tried to go to this person because they said that they can help first responders and military, but I have to spend 45 minutes of my hour session explaining how to use this or why we do this protocol or whatever before I can even explain the thing that's bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice to have a therapist who's been on the other side and has an idea of what first responder life is like.
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, we definitely need more first responders that have the experience, that know the job and have experienced the traumas and dealing with the PTS and all that stuff, and then be able to be therapists to help other first responders to kind of overcome their traumas and the things that they've gone through, because you understand it, you've lived it, you've been there. It's very important. I wish you
I
were.
found two things. First of all, lived experience, and second of all, not being affiliated with anybody's agency. Because they don't want, and Tyler, you can attest to this, I'm sure, as the rest of you can, they don't want their agency knowing that they're getting help.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's still a thing. People, and a lot of it is based on the agency, right? So if an agency is showing their people, if a chief or whatever is showing their people that they don't care about mental health or they don't even recognize that that's an issue, and somebody has a problem and they know they need to go get help, last thing they want is for other people to know about it. Like I said earlier, police have it pretty rough, but even on the fire side, we didn't necessarily want to tell anybody about it because we were worried that we were going to be ridiculed or, we were going to be treated differently, I guess, treated like, oh, well, you've got some issues, so maybe you should just hang back, behind the truck on this car accident, or, maybe you should just do exterior attack instead of going interior, that sort of thing.
Right. Kind of creates a little bit of isolation for you.
Yeah.
I know that we're not really affiliated with some of these organizations, but there are organizations that we are in contact with that do that have private anonymous support, and they will keep your sessions anonymous. If you don't want to tell your name, you just want to talk, it's all anonymous and it's safe. And these are trained professionals. Some of them are therapists, some of them are police officers, law enforcement, firefighters, people that have lived in the field, have dealt with these things. It's a peer support group for people to get together and network and to kind of be anonymous with each other so that you can get that help. And you won't have to worry about being ridiculed or criticized, and your department doesn't need to know.
There's also a great phone number that you can call. It's a national hotline number, and it's 988. That's, you can talk to a live person that knows exactly what it is that you're going through, and they can help you out with a lot of stuff too. There's an organization here locally that does a lot of stuff nationwide called Remedy Live, and they are an excellent organization. You can check out their website. They've got a lot of cool stuff on there. You can actually text them. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but you can actually text them. You can call them. You can chat with them online, just like Instant Messenger, that sort of thing. Is Instant Messenger still a thing? Do we call it that? I feel like I'm showing my age, like AOL Instant Messenger. But regardless, you can do all that kind of stuff on there, and they're a great resource as well. Rico, it looks like we got a few people that jumped on here to part of the invite there.
Yeah, we're trying to get some more people involved. If there's anybody else that wants to chime in, Ben, if you're a first responder, you want to speak.
I was going to say things have definitely changed going from being a junior or cadet, whatever you want to call it, to going into it full time.
How so, Ben?
So, well, obviously there's the responsibility change from being just a junior to full time. And also they look at you differently, I've learned. Like overall you get looked at differently. Treated differently.
Who's looking at you differently? Like the administration, you mean?
Captains, lieutenants.
Okay. Yeah.
Chain of command actually treats you like a person. Yeah. Once you're out of being a junior or cadet, whatever your department calls it.
I'm second command chief of different fire departments in City Hall. Like, I understand, like, everyone at a firehouse, like, look at you different and treat you wrong. Like, I understand that. It's just, they, like, my first day being a firefighter, they always print me, like, know me well. They, like, trying to get to know you better.
You mean they try to get you know you better at once you're out of that cadet phase and in the full-time phase?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more of the fact that I was looked at as a tool, not a person.
Yeah.
When you're a junior, you get looked at as the tool to clean up their mess around the station and whatever.
Well, I think one thing to consider, though, on that aspect is when you're when you're a cadet or you're a rookie, or there's a lot of combination departments out there now that are career and they still have volunteers,
I mean,
but
you're
it's
doing
kind
the
of
grunt work.
Rookie,
You're doing the
right.
grunt work.
But you're
um,
getting built up to that point, right? Like they're trying to fill you out, you're trying to
yes,
fill them out. They're getting you ready. Everybody's going through the kind of the same thing, right? Or has gone through the same
yeah,
thing at one point. You're the new guy,
like,
you're gonna do the grunt type stuff. That's pretty normal on departments.
like my fiance, like, I think y'all know her, Dakota. She's in here. She know like where like every fire apartment like once to like every day one of my firefighters died, and now I have to go to the funeral tomorrow. I ain't know about it
Mm.
since I got home.
Oh,
I
that's
just
too
got
bad.
home.
We just had one today for a retired
What
member
county?
that died.
Oh, what county you at?
Well, this is for a department I'm visiting up in Maine, but I'm on a Vermont department, so things are
Was
different.
was it a line of duty?
No, it was a retired member,
Oh, okay,
Oh yeah, it's one of them.
but
I
they
got you.
still send the trucks and whatever,
Sure, yeah, 100%.
which
Yeah.
is nice because around
Oh,
where I am, we don't do that. We
everyone
just
in the
say,
pain
"Oh,
they
they died."
expect because that person is a member of that firehouse and it's called family. Like they always make sure always they brothers and sisters be never left behind. Everything, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like I lost my best friend and my brother. My brother was in the firehouse until he got shot, and my other best friend committed suicide on some crazy stuff. Both of them
Hmm.
was at the same firehouse where I was when I started. Now I lost both of them. They was my brothers and my sisters and everything.
Um,
Let me ask you guys a question. Okay, so with a lot of these traumas that you guys go through, and a lot of your brothers and sisters that are unaliving themselves because of the traumas and not being able to cope with everything that they've gone through, what are some of the policies that you think need to be changed in order for that to be prevented?
Right now in City Hall, like today, I already got a whole email with a whole meeting today. I didn't know about. Um, they changing the policy already. Like they make sure like everyone get home safe for everything because the cops going to be with us 24/7. Because like there's a whole lot of people shooting and people like my best friend who I knew from high school. He committed suicide because like I told him don't do it because his ex girlfriend dated him dirty.
Make sure you say
She got
unalive.
him
Don't
with
say the other
another
word.
man. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Um, I don't remember what I was going to say now. Caught me off with the "don't say that word."
Yeah. Unfortunately, because you don't want to get banned again.
Yeah, we don't want that. So let me ask you guys this, Ben, and all I see is firefighter on there. But let me ask you guys a question. So when you guys decided to join the fire department, what was your reason? What was your why? Why did you want to join?
Because my mother, my mom, she
Because your mom?
she's a person who I looked up to,
Okay.
and it'd be my mother and my grandfather. My
Okay.
grandfather died, the line of duty.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That's fine. That's the
Ben,
only two people who I looked up to.
Ben, what was your why?
all right, I had a couple of reasons. First reason, my grandfather was on Amagansett Fire back in the, I want to say 70s. I have his certificate of joining that department sitting at home on my wall. And the other reason, I had gone through huge breakup and whatever, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start helping people. So I went and joined my local department and kind of went from there. And that was I want to say freshman or sophomore year of high school I started.
Okay. So when you have a tough call, when you have a tough situation, or even if you're having a tough situation at the firehouse, you know, you feel like you're doing the grunt work, or you feel like you're being told to do something that nobody else is doing, or whatever. Do you ever go back and think, what's my why? Why am I here? And do you ever sit there and think, like, is my why still the same, or do I need to change it? Do you ever think about that?
Not really. I've always looked at it as I'm here to help people, and I'm gonna get to that point. I just need to get through the grunt stuff.
So I'm going to tell you, just from personal experience, that thinking, that mentality of I'm here to help people, eventually it gets really, really tough, right? You get to a point where you see a lot of evil. You see how evil people can be to others. And sometimes I know some people, myself was included in this, but there are a lot of people that are just like, man, I hate people. And it's because we see the evil things that people do to each other all the time, right? We go on these shootings, we go on these stabbings, we go on these horrible calls, and
Let me.
we just start to hate people, right? But what I'm getting at is you want to kind of dig deep and find what your why is. Whether, you know, saying I want to help people is great, and I highly encourage that. I think that's awesome. But you need to kind of shift that thinking a little bit and try to find a deeper why. Why are you here? Because eventually that wanting to help people, that's not going to be enough for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
when
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go
Last
ahead.
month, yeah, all right. Last month, I went on this technically it's a medical and fire call, same thing, in rescue. This kid was on a bridge, on a ledge. Like, police, everyone blocked the streets, that whole situation. They called us saying we is the closest one to that bridge. Like, to that key bridge, checking is by that key bridge and stuff, that wall. They, on the other hand, they dispatched us because I might know that kid because my homeboy or anyone who I know is around him. I saw who it was, then long that whole situation, he almost jumped off until I told him, like, this is not like a right idea. Your parents didn't raise you like this. Like, I told him, jump off. Don't jump off a bridge. Off like it take your whole life away. It happened so many times. I lost people, and he got off the bridge. I made sure he didn't jump off the bridge at all. Like, he like came to me, like everything.
Hmm.
I took him to his parents and everything, explained the whole situation, what he told me. Like, I feel bad for him because that
Yeah.
whole situation, his best friend died in the hospital. I I think he told me his friend got cancer or something. I don't know. Yes. Give me a second. Yeah.
Real quick, Rico, I'm gonna end the YouTube live just
Okay.
because we've got a lot more people on here than we do on there.
Yeah.
Um, so for everybody that's on YouTube live or listening to this episode, because this is gonna get posted tomorrow, appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next episode. All right, so that one's ended.
when you were mentioning that deeper why thing, that goes back off of we had a call a couple months back that I did traffic for. It was an accident, car versus dump truck.
Mm.
Lady was out of it.
Mm-hmm.
She had her 5 kids and dog in the car. No one was strapped in. One kid made it, and she made it. And as far as I know, last I checked, she's behind bars for life.
Jeez.
But seeing one of those kids under that dump truck is what did it for me when we rolled up.
Yeah, that's I know exactly
Hey,
how
bro.
that feels because I've been on those kind of calls. That's
Yeah.
And
rough.
that's one of those moments where you wish you could just get that mother to not be alive.
Bro, I got a question for you. That when you and your crew rolled up on that scene, did police or anyone was there for y'all?
No, we were the closest to it.
Okay.
We beat the state police there because I was up at the station already just doing stuff because we're a volunteer station, but we were training that day, so we were already at the station.
Yeah, I got you. It's just you know that can be liability on y'all. Like police wasn't there, didn't know what happened or ask questions. If everything fall on y'all.
We started as just traffic
Y'all-
until PD rolled up.
Gotcha.
So we waited for PD before we did anything, which was only about a minute after we arrived.
Okay.
That's one of those lucky moments when you hear kids are involved, you know, that's when the rescue company just puts it in high gear. I'm sure you guys know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You kind of put aside the whole just go super slow thing for an MVA and you just kind of kick it into high gear and go.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. It was a medic call went out to my station. I was getting home from PA and stuff. And I saw the medic truck and a car crash to a medic truck, and I don't know what happened after that. I know engine and Italian one showed up to that call. I feel bad for whoever it is in that car. That person is liability for them.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but a lot of volunteer departments are now getting their own ambulance companies as well. Like, at least where I am, we just ordered a second tanker and 2 ambulances to up our ISO rating. And we're right on a ski slope, so I'm not sure if that's something you're familiar with, but I haven't exactly figured out why we did that yet.
We getting we getting new metal trucks and engines and Italian cars, the new ones.
We don't even have battalion cars. We have a utility, which is just a pickup truck, and our chief usually runs in that.
Real quick, Ben, the reason why you're getting those ambulances to up your ISO rating is it's not, I mean, it is for you guys, but it's more so for the people that are in your district, because if your ISO rating is low, then their insurance premiums go down. If their insurance premiums go down, then they're more likely to help fund your department. That's the gist of it.
I mean, granted, we also want to have a better department because our ambulances are 20 minutes down the slope from us. So we wanted something closer so we could get there quicker.
Absolutely. As long as you have the
Especially
providers
with
to
the
staff it, I don't see a problem with it.
No, and we just became, I don't know what you want to call a department that's volunteer and paid, because we just say it's a co-ed department. It's stupid.
It's a combination department. That's actually, so I actually have a lot of insight into this because that's how my career started. So I would not even be in EMS if I hadn't started at a combination career/volunteer department. And what happens is like, so you've got maybe an engine company that responds, for the emergencies, right? So you've got a duty crew that's like 3 to 4 people. Those 3 to 4 people go, and then the rest of it either comes from your mutual aid companies or your volunteers come in and staff the rig. So that's how I started. So it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
We have we have the 4 people staffed, but for all calls we send an engine and a ladder. So there's always a volunteer crew that comes in no matter what. And we have an engine, a ladder, a rescue, a mini engine, and then the tanker.
My station got 2 brush trucks, 2 medics trucks, 2 engine, 2 ladders, 2 artillery trucks, and
So granted,
it
we're in a
might
bigger
be
town.
about 2 or 1 command call in one of the stations.
So I'm guessing you're in a
Is it, bro?
multi-station district.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is with us, we're one station.
Whenever I'm going to move, whenever I'm going to move to a different state, I'm gonna get to a different district. And yeah.
I'm going to interrupt. Can we get back on topic?
Yeah, so basically the topic we were talking about was, dealing with traumas and PTSI and other things like that. We wanted to get you guys a little voice, but we do have to get back on track here. And so how can we get departments to normalize getting you guys help and dealing with your mental health problems that you get from the job?
So my thought, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to have to normalize actually speaking up about it because of that stigma. We have a problem speaking up about these things because I don't know about the rest of you, but whenever I was coming up in this job forever ago, it seems, you didn't talk about stuff like that because if you did, you were considered the pariah. Nobody wanted to deal with you anymore. They didn't want to put you on a truck. They didn't want to put you with a partner. People would tell you that they didn't want to work with you because you were a liability. So now I guess what's happening is like a lot of places are going with this employee assistance program, which is fantastic. If you take the time to turn your providers onto that and let them know that it is okay not to be okay. Unfortunately, I feel like there is also still this stigma like, well, because of the way that it was in the past, now we don't want to speak up about it. And it's going to take every damn one of us speaking up and not stopping speaking up until something is done. That's what it's going to take. And I don't know how we're going to get everybody on board with that other than to keep hammering the point home.
Hey, I'll be right back, guys.
Mr. John Shady, what you got to say on here?
What makes you think I have something to say, Tyler?
You always have something to say.
He's 1,000%. That is just 1,000% correct. I came up same time, started in the 90s, military. I did combat tour. You keep your mouth shut, you're strong, you bury it, you move on. And we gotta get away from that. I mean, it's killing us literally, mentally, physically, it's killing us. It took me up to a couple years ago that, hey, you got to do something about this. And, you take that moment where you're sitting there holding that Glock in your hand, thinking, my 12-year-old come home and find me if I kill myself right now. We got to help people before they get to that point. We got to speak up.
Yeah, so I was talking about this a little bit earlier. I
one of the things that John, you can probably relate to this, but we all, a lot of people complain when average Joe civilian comes up and says, "Oh, you're a medic, you're a firefighter, you're a cop, whatever." Um, what's the worst thing you ever seen? And everybody complains because we hate being asked that question, right? Like myself included, I hated being asked that. But at the end of the day, if you really stop and think about it, that's probably one of the best things that average Joe could have ever asked you, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to, one, get whatever it is off of your chest, but two, it also lets Joe public know what it is we actually do. Because think about it. In EMS, you come home, your wife asks you, hey, now, John, obviously your wife is different because she works in the field. But for everybody else, your wife comes, you come home and your wife asks you, hey, how was your shift? What'd you do last night? Oh, I didn't do anything, just drove around. That's why everybody thinks all we do is drive ambulances all the time. Because we don't actually talk about what it is that we dealt with, what it is that we did, the runs that we went on or whatever. And it doesn't have to all be bad. Like we could tell good stuff. And I think it was Redbeard that was talking about, the struggles and all that. But,
Right.
at the end of the day, when, we talk about mental health on here a lot, I talk about that on my podcast a lot. Obviously, Rico talks about it a lot. But we also want people to understand that it's okay to be okay too. If you go on a call, that's a really bad call and everybody else is all beat up about it. The debrief team comes out, or the crisis incident stress management team comes out, or whatever, peer supports, and they're helping everybody. And you're sitting there like, man, everybody's all upset about this call. What's wrong with me? Why am I not upset about it? That's okay. Everybody handles things differently. You don't have to be upset about a call. And I think that's one of the things we also need to hit home too, especially as all these departments and agencies across the country are starting to create these peer support groups as well. And yes, Redbeard, from time to time, I do drive, or at least I did when I was in EMS.
So while we're on the topic of peer support, let me just get this out in the open, and this is going to sound absolutely insane and terrible and whatnot, but I'm just going to say it. Peer support counseling that has no idea about what we do is freaking useless.
Rico, didn't I say that a few minutes ago?
Yeah.
They always want to stick us with those guys too, like, oh, well, I'm here to listen to you. Listen, if I told you everything that I'd seen and everything that I'd done, I would make you cry. You would probably want to be in the same situation that I was in. You'd probably quit. That's just it. We're terrible about that. I don't understand, because there's plenty of resources that are out there for us. And it just seems that they keep getting, the dude that looks like Bunsen from the Muppets that has no freaking clue what it is that we're doing. And he's got to somehow help me through my trauma. No way.
The first time I ever went to the VA, I don't know, it's probably been 15 years ago. And I sat down with a guy who was going to do, CPT counseling or therapy with me, or go through, PTSD therapy with me. And I'm staring across at this 450-pound, guy who looks like he just walked out of Whataburger with half a sandwich on his chest. And I'm a military guy, and he's supposed to understand me. So I it's exactly where you're coming from.
Right.
But, I think the peer support really needs to start with those of us that have been around 25 to 30 years.
And in a lot of cases they are. Like, especially here in Indiana, we've got these peer support groups that are that way. But the problem is when you get, and I mentioned this earlier, when you get agencies that create these peer support groups and they're only doing it, and this is not directed towards anybody here locally, but they're only doing it because there's a call to action for it, right? Like everybody else is doing it, so we need to do it
here's your 1-800 number you can call.
Yeah, right. So, like, if you're going to create it, or you're going to mandate that it's created for your department, as a leader, you should be all in on it, and you should make sure that you're actually providing the correct resources to your people, not just doing it because you're checking a box.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, ours in Northeast Indiana are awesome. Whenever we hold on a second, I'm on shift. Oh, maybe not. So No, ours in Northeast Indiana are awesome. I know most of the people involved with them personally, and when we have CISD debriefings, they're amazing. They're good people, but it's like you're saying, that day to day stuff, and it's that day to day stuff that'll bite you. After 30 years, it's not the major incidences. Yeah, they add up to it, but the day to day stuff is what'll bite you, and we don't have the support there. Yeah, my employer's got a IAP or whatever you want to call it, with a 1-800 number that if you're having problems, you can call. But what good does that really do? Somebody sitting down with you that's a peer or works with you will probably do more good than that.
Well, and that's what I said earlier too, because you can go see a counselor. That's fine. And I'm not going to attack counselors, because I think they obviously do serve a purpose 100%. But my opinion is if you're struggling from a call, the best thing you can do is just start talking about it. Talk to somebody that you trust, somebody that you know, that isn't going to tell you what you want to hear, but they're going to be there to listen and to be able to help you through it. You can sit there and you can talk to, oh, Fridge is calling. I'm jealous. See you, Redbeard. You can sit there and you can talk to, your spouse, or you can talk to a friend that's not in the field. But at the end of the day, you want to talk to somebody that truly understands what it is you're going through, not somebody that's going to, be like, oh, well, I can't imagine what that's like. Like, no, I want you to know what it's like, because I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to get help here. And that's one of the best things you can do, is to talk to someone. Doesn't have to be a professional, doesn't have to be, a CISM team, doesn't have to be a 988 number or a 1-800 number or whatever. Just talk to somebody.
It also helps.
And I'll say one of the agencies here is now requiring, they're doing, just like they require an annual wellness check, right? And an annual physical exam for law enforcement officers. They're trying to mandate, and I don't think it's going to go very well, that these first responders in this particular county have to come in at least once a year and do an assessment with a counselor. And that's going to go over like a lead balloon. Let's be honest, because nobody likes being forced into anything, especially first responders. So,
well, not only that, but what is it that they're hoping they're going to get out of that? Because to me, if I was still on a department or an agency or whatever, and I was told, okay, once a year you got to talk to a counselor, I'm going to look at that as, well, what happens if I talk to them? Like, are they doing an evaluation on me? Like, is my job on the line when I go to have this conversation? Or is it still all, you know what I mean? Like, anybody could tell me all day long, no, that's not going to happen, but I'm not going to believe that. I've been told that many times in my life before. You know what I mean?
And it comes with an attendance report, right? So it's like, okay, well, these people came, but these people didn't come, and it turns messy. It's got to be, you can throw an old adage at you. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So
100%.
All the services in the world can be there, but if the person doesn't want to take the initiative to do it themselves, you can't force them to do it. And when you try to do that, somebody will come in for their appointment because they're mandated to be there, but it's just like any other mandated person getting mandated to therapy. They're going to come in, you're going to get yes or no, cold shoulder answers, and you're going to leave, and you're not going to get anything, and if anything else, it makes you madder than you were to start with.
Yeah, the participation's not going to be there. At least not as much as they're going to want it to be.
So our sheriff's department where I live does exactly that twice a year now. And I've asked the sheriff about that. And we've talked about it actually at great length. And his philosophy behind it is, I got 17 deputies. I'm going to make every single one of them sit down for 1 hour once a year or twice a year and speak with somebody. And if it helps one of them, then I spent my money well.
Right. Before we continue, I'd just like to introduce somebody. I want to introduce Dalton, close friend. He knew my cousin personally. I just want to let him have some say and talk his story out real quick. Hey, Dalton, how's it going, brother?
Hey, how you doing, bud?
Fabulous, fabulous. Tell these wonderful people everything that you're doing and what you're going through, and give us the lowdown on everything that's going on.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so Hillsdale, Michigan.
Oh, I think we're losing him.
Where'd you go there, Dalton?
Looks like his signal's not very good.
Can you hear us, Dalton?
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, we lost you for a second. Go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me a little bit better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, Hillsdale, Michigan. And as I was saying, I knew his cousin Billy. I'm actually going through corrections currently at the Department of Corrections for Michigan State. Basically, this week I am graduating from the academy for the Michigan Department of Corrections. So I'll be an official CO after this week.
Nice, congrats.
Thank you. And I'm officially a certified fireman for volunteer fireman. Actually, I think it was like last week a week and a half ago, I got certification finally. So we got that. And basically, I race cars on the weekends and just having a good old time living life, you know.
That's awesome.
Well, we're glad you're doing really well.
It's definitely something. We're trying.
I've been watching you.
We're definitely trying. That's
Hillsdale, Michigan. That's not far That's not far from where we're located.
Oh yeah, where you out of?
We're myself and John, that's on there. We're out of northeastern Indiana.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Right on.
Close to where I used to live.
Yeah, I'm actually driving back from a friend's house, so that's probably why I lost connection for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I was just talking to you, buddy. Glad you're doing really well. Thank you for coming on here. We're just talking about some serious issues with having to deal with traumas and PTSI and all that good stuff. So if you want to stay on and listen, go ahead. If you have anything to add to the stories, feel free to chime in.
So what was sorry, the conversation kind of broke up about what you guys were talking about. So what was that again?
We're talking about some issues about mental health and dealing with PTSI and, just with people kind of unaliving themselves and that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
If you just want to listen in. If you have any thoughts, you want to chime in, go ahead.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna put you on mute until you get ready to have a say. So, what are some of the ways that we can, help people get connected with some of these peer support groups? Other resources, anything? Does anybody know of any other resources? I have resources I could put out there. Peer support groups. They're out of state, obviously. But does anybody else have any ideas or anything like that?
I do. I've got a couple. So, out of Florida, Deerfield Beach, FHE Health runs a program called Shatterproof. It's an inpatient 6 to 8 week program. They help with everything from substances to, SI and thoughts of wanting to harm, as well as anger and all sorts of stuff. They are an amazing program. all you have to do is give them a call and they can help you. They work with insurance. If you don't have insurance, they have a lot of amazing places that, as long as you're active on a roster, will help you with a scholarship to be able to go and stay. It is all first responders. And they live like apartment style living. So there's 2 rooms, and those 2 rooms share like a kitchen area. It's a really great setup there. There's a place called Triangle Springs out in Raleigh, North Carolina. Also more of an inpatient type deal. And then FHE also has a branch. I think it's in Connecticut or Massachusetts. I'm not 100% sure. Same thing though for first responders, specifically. So, any kind of things where you think you need more help than an outpatient clinician, those are the top, those are the big guys. Those are the best of the best right there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As far as peer support, for firefighters specifically, the IAFF, the local, whatever the local chapter is, usually has a peer support team.
How you doing?
At least in my experience. And then I actually am working here in North Carolina. I'm working with a guy who you can find him on Facebook called Saving Ourselves. And he's doing a lot of mental health education out this way. I'm working with him to try to get the word out. So those are all options right now. And then in 2027, they just passed a law, and in 2027, therapists will, with certain licenses, will be able to operate in other states. Right now, we have like a license just for the state we're in. So in 2027, for example, I would be able to expand and offer services, and I do crisis services for first responders in any state that participates in that compact. So that's coming. It's a long ways off, but those are the resources I know of.
Okay. Have you guys ever heard of healingthehero.org?
Mm-mm.
They'd
I
be a
have seen
good
that
one
one.
to kind of go to, and they say they work wonders. Guy seems fabulous. He was on our podcast, and I'm actually debating on getting with him to deal with my personal traumas, and it is free for all first responders. I'm going to go ahead and get on with him, and then we're going to talk about it on the podcast and see how it's helped me.
That's awesome.
Even though I'm a first responder,
hey guys,
podcast.
sorry I'm kind of late to the chat, but I got kind of general idea of what we're discussing here. San Antonio, I'm new to the chat, obviously, but a little bit about myself. I'm a police officer in Tennessee. I've been here since about 2018. Before that, I did about 10 years of law enforcement in San Antonio.
Okay.
San Antonio Police Department has a program that or the city of San Antonio in general, has a program that they implemented. They have a psychologist that they have on staff for the city. And whenever there's any kind of critical incident, everybody who responds to that incident is required to go talk to her before they can return to duty. And the reason they did it that way was to kind of help alleviate the stigma of, oh, this guy couldn't handle the call, or this guy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They go in and they talk to her one at a time. If they're fine, if they don't want to talk to somebody, if they don't need help, it's cool, no harm, no foul. But for the people that need help but don't want to necessarily admit to wanting the help because of the stigma that mental health has had in this career for many, many years, it gives them an opportunity to sit down and talk with her. And if she feels like, or they feel like that this person needs more help, she'll refer them to somebody outside the department. And basically, because she's licensed, she's a psychologist, everything that this person talks to her about remains confidential. She doesn't release it to the city or the higher ups. She just doesn't necessarily, she keeps an eye on them, and she does the best that she can to help them without getting the department involved or the city involved. Again, she'll refer them out. She'll follow up with them, once a week or once every couple weeks just to see how they're doing, see how they were handling it. And she does the same thing for the fire department and EMS for the city. And they mandated that anybody involved in any critical incident, anything involving children, a shooting, mass casualty event, anything like that, they were required within a certain amount of time to go sit and talk to her for an hour before they could be returned to duty. It's been effective. I haven't heard any insides to it from guys that I've talked to, but it's a program I wish more departments would implement and more departments would start. Part of the issue is paying the salary of a psychologist, because that's her
Right.
only job.
Right.
That was the only job she had. She worked for the city, and that was it.
So, do the majority of the officers, firefighters, whatever, does it seem like they are supporting that and they want to participate in that then?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And it was kind of helped started with the mental health unit of San Antonio. San Antonio and the county that San Antonio is in, Bexar County, the sheriff's office, they both have mental health units. And the purpose of the mental health units was for if, we get a call about somebody at the house having suicidal ideations, they are officers that are in plain clothes and unmarked units. They go there, they talk to these people, they evaluate them, and they determine if it's something where they need to be admitted to a hospital under emergency situations. What Texas calls an emergency detention, every state has a different, calls it something different. But basically, we're taking this person to the hospital and we're admitting them for psychiatric reasons, putting them on a 72-hour hold or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that mental health unit was started, and after they started it, they realized, hey, we need something for officers, because you're placed on a mandatory 72-hour psychiatric hold. Well, guess what? In the state of Texas, now you're giving up your firearms. And if you're, law enforcement, that affects your job. You can't work because you can't own a fire. You're having to turn those over until everything's cleared. So it turned into something where the mental health unit was like, we need something for officers. We need something in place for them, especially after these critical incidents, somewhere they can go and talk and it not jeopardize their career. If it's something that just like, hey, this call messed with me a little bit. I'm having a little bit of PTSD. I don't think I need to be admitted, but I just need somebody I can talk to about it.
Okay.
That was kind of what that was put in place for, and it was well received. It's been going on 20 years now, at least.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great for, obviously in a perfect world, that would be nice for every department across the country to offer that, or every city across the country to offer that. I think the problem that you run into, and you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, is finances, right? It gets kind of expensive, especially when you get some of these smaller cities. But we also still have the issue where departments don't even want to recognize that that's an issue. And a lot of that is because, mental health isn't really something you can see, right? Like, Rico, if Rico's having a problem with mental health, I can't necessarily see that like I can a broken bone or whatever. Um, I think like I said, I think it would be great if every department could offer that, and you can get that buy-in from everybody that's on the department or the agency or whatever, to participate in something like that. I feel like when they started that 20 years ago, they probably had some pushback from some people just because, like what I was saying earlier, if somebody mandates me to go talk to a shrink once. I say shrink just because it's habit, but they mandate
Yeah.
me to go talk to somebody once or twice a year. I would be kind of hesitant to do it if my department's paying for it, just because, what's that person going to say? Are they going to report me back to my higher ups if I say the wrong thing? You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily the case, but that could be the mentality of some people. And it definitely would have been the mentality of me 5 years ago when I was still in the field.
Right.
And when they got the program off the ground, it did get some pushback based on that. Because she was a city employee, because she worked for the department, that there was some hesitancy about it for just that reason. That they were worried that she was going to report it back to the higher ups, and okay, there goes my job, there goes whatever. So they took a lot of effort and put a lot of guidelines in place to prevent that from happening. And once it got up and running and they used it a few times, a lot of folks were actually seeing that wasn't the case, and a lot more people got on board with it at that point. But kind of go back to what you mentioned a minute ago about pushback from departments and people not wanting to recognize mental health in departments. A department that I previously worked for, I left this department in January, but we actually had two issues with deputies here. One was guys going through a divorce. He's having a rough time at home. He's going through a divorce. He gets in an argument with his wife. He decides to go for a walk in the woods behind his house, and of course takes his firearm with him because he takes it with him everywhere he goes.
Before you continue, I don't want to interrupt you.
His wife calls
Do
one
not.
of the deputies and says, "Hey, he's going out back to kill himself." So they respond, they talk to the guy, and he's brought in a couple days later, put under internal affairs investigation, and ultimately given the option of resigning or being fired. And then a couple months after that, we had a female deputy who kind of same thing, was going through issues at home. Her husband went to work. He worked for another agency. While he's at work, she starts sending him text messages saying that she's going to, kill herself. She takes some pills. She winds up in the hospital. They bring her out of the hospital, and it's like, well, sorry, you're terminated. You don't have a job here anymore. We can't have people with that. We can't have people with those kind of issues working for this department. Within less than a 6-month period of time, they fired 2 people for having a mental health crisis. And that was basically one of the straws for me where I was like, I can't work for, instead of trying to find help for them, they fire them. And
It's easier to let them go than it is to try to fix the problem.
well, they told the guy that he was an embarrassment to the sheriff's office for what he did. And I'm like, that's, if he truly was having a mental health crisis, that's not going to help it. If anything, that's going to make it worse, because now you're telling him he's an embarrassment. Now you've cost him his job on top of what's going on with his marriage. You just kind of like, made his issues that much worse. If he wasn't thinking about it before, he's probably thinking about it now.
All right.
But
Yeah, we just had an issue. Sorry, Rico. We just had a situation like that, similar to the agency that I used to work for. I still got a bunch of people that reach out to me and fill me in on all the different drama going on. But one of the situations was there was an individual that came to work and smelled of alcohol, and his partner was new and reported it. Police got involved. They did a breathalyzer, whole 9 yards, and that individual ended up getting terminated. But it's one of those things that you got to think about. Like, if somebody's at the point where they're coming to work in the morning or at night, if they're a night shifter, and they're smelling like alcohol, they know the dangers of that in their job. Like, they know the amount of professionalism that they need to show in that job. There's obviously a deeper issue, but it's at the same time, it's, well, this person's jeopardizing the safety of their partner. They're jeopardizing the safety of the people on the street. They're breaking policy, so now we got to let them go. And I think a lot of times we just need to take a step back and realize, like, there's something deeper going on here.
Right.
yeah,
All right. Before we move on, I just wanted to say something to Irish. Specifically, I know you're new to the TikTok, but we have to really be careful with some of the terminologies that we use. So when you refer to somebody else doing self-harm or having any kind of ideations, you have to say unalive. You cannot say the words because
I realized that after I said it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It will get us banned from this live. So just kind of be cautious of that. I think you're doing a great job. I appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. Please keep doing that. Just be aware of what you say.
Yeah, as soon as I said it, I was like, "Oh, I can't say that." Yeah, sorry about that.
I mean, I would say it exactly how it's supposed to be, because that's just how I am. But unfortunately, TikTok has their set of rules, and that's where we're at. So,
No, I understand.
just keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're doing great.
Appreciate it. Thank you. But this is a discussion that I take pretty seriously. I'm pretty. My wife also is in law enforcement. We have this discussion quite a bit. And like I said, I moved here from Texas to Tennessee, and looking at the massive difference in how mental health is treated between Texas and Tennessee, it really just grinds my gears. Texas took a very hard stand on it as this is an issue, we're going to work on it. Tennessee's just kind of one of those things that we just don't want to recognize it. In the police academy in Texas, even when I went through 15, 16 years ago, crisis intervention training was a mandatory part of the academy. And when we did our continuing education hours every year, we were required to have 16 hours of it. Now, I went a step further and took a mental health peace officer course and became certified as a mental health officer in Texas. But Tennessee, it's like we get 4 hours of it, if that. It's not a big push in Tennessee, and that just kind of grinds me because it's a real thing. And the prior agency that I worked for, I had a call about a 16-year-old that was standing on the edge of a bridge, ready to take that step. And I went out there and spent a couple hours, talked him down. And the next day, the department was like, you should have let him do it.
Oh, jeez.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, really? This is a 16-year-old kid who's standing on the brink because he just had this bad breakup with his first love. And I spent 2 hours standing on an interstate overpass to talk him down, and you're telling me I should have just let him do it? That's the mentality of the mental health how they treat mental health in Tennessee right now amongst a majority of law enforcement. It's just it's
I think
sickening
I
to
think
me.
part of the problem is there's a fear when it comes to mental health, right? Like we all used to blame people's actions on mental health, and in some cases, it still is the case. But there's this fear because, like I mentioned earlier, you can't see it. You see the actions, you see how they do stuff, but you can't see it like you can an injury. So a lot of people just kind of brush it off. I guarantee when you were going through the academy for the police department, they were pushing you to run a mile and a half in a certain time. You had to have a vertical jump so high. You had to do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups. Probably
Mm-hmm.
had to do a dash of some sort. Like you got to do all these things, right? You got to pass your physical fitness test, continue to do that through the academy. It's the same thing in the fire service. But what we don't do is we don't do anything for mental health. We don't do anything for our brains. And in a way, yes, I know brain is an organ, but in a way, a brain is very similar to your muscle, to a muscle. If you don't strengthen it, if you don't do something to help yourself, it's going to deteriorate. You're going to start going downhill. And unfortunately, that's what we all do in public safety. We get to this point, we all share in dark humor. That's one of our best coping mechanisms is dark humor, it seems. When it gets to the point where you notice somebody is maybe going a little too dark, like that incident, that could have been, I obviously don't know, I wasn't there, but that could have been a form of dark humor. But when you start to see people getting a little too dark, that's a trigger right there, or that's a sign right there that somebody is struggling with mental health of their own.
Yeah, Chris, you had some comments on the bottom? What did you have to say, Chris?
I have to agree with everything I've been hearing on the live so far. I mean, I can recall an incident happening a few months back, and me being a corrections officer, I've actually witnessed one of my own teammates literally crash out on another officer. He literally crashed out. And the way we handle our mental health awareness here in Alabama, when you got enough annual time on the books, the lieutenants or the sergeants will tell you straight up, even the warden himself would step in and say, go take you some time off. Because they don't want to see you get fired. That's one way we look out for our officers. For me, example, I just took a week off. I almost crashed out at work because of all that I got going on. No car is in the shop. I'm dealing with my wife being locked up. So, they told me to take a week off. I literally almost had a fight with another coworker. And I myself
That's
struggle with mental health. I struggle with it bad. They know that.
Do they offer any assistance for you or any resources,
Yeah,
anything like
there's a
that?
lot of resources that they offer us. We have one-on-ones with the warden that they just implemented at my job. If you're struggling with it, go talk to the warden. A warden will have a one-on-one with you to see what's going on, and they kind of give their input on saying, okay, take you some time off, kind of recoup, get your mind back in order. Or even the lieutenant will step in and say, hey, go take you some time off, man. Or like for myself, if I feel like I'm finna crash out, I'll go to my lieutenant, hey, can I take, this much time off real quick just to recoup my mind and get back in order so when I come back to work, I'm good to go.
So
Because,
one of the
I've never had that instance of, doing that famous word. I won't say it on the live, but,
yeah.
I've come close to it. And I've had to, if it wasn't for my family and my in-laws stepping in to say, hey, come on home for a while. Recoup your mind. We know you got a lot going on. You want everybody home, but, you got to keep pushing.
So one of the reasons why I really enjoy this collaboration, and honestly, Rico, I think we should make this more of a regular thing somehow. We
I
can
agree.
work that those details out later. But
Okay.
one of the reasons why I really like this, and I talked about this earlier in the night, was, yeah, there you can go see a therapist, you can go see a psychiatrist, you can go do all of those things, right? And if you feel like you're at that point where you need to, I highly encourage you to. But one of the things I tell a lot of people is when you're going through something tough, whether it was a bad call or you witnessed something that was horrific, or you're just struggling with life, one of the best things you can do is just to talk to somebody that you trust, because that's the hardest part, right? Like,
Yeah.
Irish Viking, sorry, I don't know your name, but like you mentioned earlier, San Antonio has something incorporated into their city where you have to go talk to somebody. That's great. But if you don't necessarily know that person, you don't necessarily trust that person, it's kind of difficult. You can go talk to, people can go talk to their spouses, but if your spouse doesn't understand what it is that you deal with, or what it is that you go through, like what your job actually is, it makes it difficult too. So it's always important, at least from my perspective and the things that I've gone through, I've always gone and talked to somebody that, one, I trust, two, they understand the field, whether they work in my field as a firefighter or they worked in my field as a police officer or whatever. They understand what I was going through. They're not going to sit there and be like, well, if I were you, I would have done this, do that armchair quarterback Monday Night Football crap. Somebody that's going to listen and give you an opportunity to get the crap off of your chest that needs to come off. And then when you're ready and you are willing to listen or to receive feedback, then they can give that to you. But I highly recommend people talk.
And my name is Nate, by the way. But
Nice to meet you, Nate.
Hey,
Nate,
Nate,
you too. And that really hits. That really hits with me. I mentioned earlier that I took the mental health officer class when I was in San Antonio, and one of the officers that taught it, me and him became really good friends. And he was actually there for me at a point when I needed somebody to talk to. I had an incident where I wound up in the emergency room with a family member, and when I walked out the front doors just to go out in the parking lot and take a break, he happened to be standing there because he had just dropped off a mental health patient at that hospital. And he saw me and he's like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I'm like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "Sit down and talk to me." We started talking. His partner come out and was like, "Hey man, we got another call we got to go to." And he's like, "No, it can wait. I'm talking to this guy right now." And he sat there and he talked to me for about 2 hours, and really helped me feel better. And one of the scenarios that we always taught because I started helping teach the mental health officer class, one of the scenarios that we always taught was a scenario where we get dispatched to an officer's house. He's facing some legal trouble, possibly facing some jail time, and just how that affects us as police officers, knowing that I'm getting ready to get locked up, with the people that I've put in jail. And that was one of the scenarios that we ran and that we were teaching people to go through in this class. Well, in December, the report came out that it was an accidental shooting as he was getting ready for training. The chief of police come up there and just, "Oh, it was an accident, trust us, it was an accident." Well, it turned out not to be an accident. He was facing some legal trouble that he didn't tell anybody about. He went to this training he was scheduled to go to, and when he got in the parking lot, he stepped out of his truck, took out his duty weapon, and unalived himself right there in the parking lot where fellow officers could find him. This was a guy that taught mental health in San Antonio Police Department. He started the mental health program. He started the program that I talked about earlier with the psychologist. He was one of the ones that helped start that and get it off. He was the one that would come to your house as a you being a fellow law enforcement officer, he would come to your house and tell you, hey, it's okay. We can work through this. It's not worth doing this. But
That's too
he
bad.
did not turn around and use those same resources that he knew was available. And
It's tough to take your own advice sometimes. I mean,
it,
I struggle with it all the time.
it really is, and I do too. And it was a real kick in the gut to me because I was upset about losing a friend, obviously, but at the same time, I was like, he knew better.
Yeah.
He knew what resources were out there because he helped set them up. You know, he so but it's that whole thing. I don't know if he knew who he could trust to talk to or not because
Right.
of what these alleged charges were um that were coming up or whatever. So I don't know what it was, but that was kind of just a real eye opener for me that even those of us that took the time to get good formal training on this stuff and know the resources are available, are we necessarily going to use them?
Right.
Yeah.
And I have. I mean, I've had to use those resources a couple times, but it's just one of those things that really makes you think about it. Can we really trust the system? And I'm talking to his daughter a little bit. That was kind of her thing, was she felt like he couldn't trust the system to that if he did come forward with this stuff, he was still going to have a job, or he wasn't going to be ostracized by the community, the law enforcement community or whatever.
Rico, I'm gonna have to jump off of here because my phone is about to die. But there was one thing that I wanted to leave everybody with, and I had mentioned this earlier. I think probably before the majority of the people were on this call. But one of the best things that you can do is if your spouse does not work in the field, your spouse doesn't understand. The reason why your spouse doesn't understand is because of you. You don't have that conversation with your spouse. You don't let your spouse know what it is that you do. And I say that because, my wife, she's a trauma NP for a pretty large trauma center here locally. She understands. She also worked on the volunteer side of the fire department with me for a while. But there would be times that I would come home after working in the city on the ambulance. I would come home and she would ask me how my day was, and I'd be like, "Oh, it was all right. Just drove around, didn't do anything." Like, I'm not sharing what I actually did. And we see that in law enforcement. We see that with firefighters. We don't talk to our spouses about what it is that we dealt with that night because we have this thought in our head that if we tell them what it was that we dealt with, we're going to be hurting them. We need to protect them. When in reality, we're actually doing the exact opposite. We're hurting them by not talking to them. That's why in fire, EMS, and police, we see such a high divorce rate. It's like 4 times the national average in those fields.
Right.
So we need to have those conversations because at the end of the day, once we get them to understand what it is that we do, now that's another resource that we have available to us that can help us in these tough times. But with that, I got to jump off here. My phone is going to die. I'm surprised it has not died already. Rico, I will get in touch with you soon and see if we can figure out how we can make this a more regular thing. But I
Absolutely.
appreciate every single one of you. Appreciate you, Rico, for setting this whole thing up. You and your future wife for helping set all this up.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Tyler Burns from the Debrief. If you haven't heard his podcast, check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. I've interviewed a lot of really awesome people. Check it out. Leave me a review if you do check it out. I mean, if it's a negative review, please don't leave me a review. Just reach out to me and let me know what's negative. But if you got a positive experience, you got something out of it, please leave me a review so we can get through that dumb algorithm on all the social media. So again, I appreciate all of you. Y'all have a great night. Stay safe.
All right, Tyler, we'll get back with you.
Yep, we'll see ya.
See you, buddy. That was Tyler, everybody. So this was our live collaboration, 8158 podcast and the Debrief with Tyler Burns. Now, Irish, I would like to. Are we friends on Facebook or not Facebook, but on TikTok?
I believe we are. Yeah, I think you follow me. I follow you. So
Okay. Would you be interested in being on a podcast?
I would. I believe that you may have talked to. I think it might have been you. Somebody had talked to my wife about it before, about us doing a podcast. It from some live group that she was in at one point. So I believe it may have been you.
Okay.
But yeah, I would absolutely love to do a podcast with you.
Okay. Yeah, you could go on the podcast. I can have Brianne send you the link. It should be in our bio. You can go ahead and check that out. If you see Chris Ballard and Deputy Chief Boyd, they were both on the podcast. So they did a very wonderful job. If you haven't listened to it, you should listen to it. We cover a lot of stuff, and it would probably help you out. We have interviewed, I don't know if you know Michael Seguru. You ever heard of him?
Maybe. Name sounds vaguely familiar.
He wrote a book, Relentless Courage. He was a retired sergeant out of Walnut Creek, California.
Okay.
And also we interviewed Captain Adam Myers out of Wisconsin. He's an awesome guy. He dealt with his own traumas, and he came back from that. So these are interesting stories. Everybody's got an interesting story, and I know we're still kind of new at the podcast platform, but we're going on 40 episodes now that we're waiting to come out. I think, Brianne, how many do we have? How many episodes do we have? Can you unmute your mic, please?
Yeah.
Hello. Where'd you go? She unmuted him. Come on, now. Get on there. There you are. Can we hear you? Hello. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We just have 37 coming out tomorrow.
7:37 coming out tomorrow, and we have more coming out later. So you definitely get to hear some interesting people, interesting stories. Yeah, very, very emotional stories from every first responder. We also do dispatch, Emily, if you're interested. We've had dispatch, we've had firefighters, EMS, corrections, the whole shebang. And so we would definitely love to have you guys on the podcast to tell your story. We generally do a pre-interview. We get you on a pre-interview. We kind of ask you a lot of questions, how you got started and what you love about your job and all that kind of stuff, so that we can formulate questions. And then after you schedule your actual interview, we forward you the questions. And then whatever you don't want to talk about or answer or talk about, you just cross it off, and we'll just kind of not talk about those issues. If you want to go incognito, if you want to change your name, you don't want to say where you're from, we'll respect that. We'll keep your anonymity. I mean, that's just the way we are. For those of you who don't know how the podcast got started, you can either listen to the first episode, or I could just tell you right now. So, now that you're on here, basically, you see I'm wearing in memory of Deputy Butler. Deputy Butler was my first cousin. We grew up together as kids, and he's several years older than me. He's 51. I'm 47. Let's put it this way: his father is more like a father to me than my own dad. And Billy was such a very special person. He was a 20-year veteran. He worked for the sheriff's department for 12 years. He stopped working for the sheriff's department to go into the military full time because he was in the guard, and he went full time with the military. And when he retired in 20 years, he went back to the sheriff's department, and unfortunately, after a year and a half, he was backing up a detective on a traffic stop, and unfortunately, his life was ended by the suspect. So that's why we started the podcast, and that's why we support our first responders, and we do have merchandise and stuff now. We did set up a foundation in his name for donations, and all the proceeds for all the merch that we get goes into the foundation and to make more merch so that we can build a foundation to help out first responders and help you guys out. If you're hurt on the job, if there's issues that you might be having, we'd be able to help you out with that. We're still young. We're still trying to build that capital in that. So it's a gruesome process, but we're working on that. And also, you can donate to the podcast, or you can donate to the foundation. We prefer the foundation. But we do sell merch and all that stuff. We make it ourselves. The hat, we made these hats ourselves. This shirt actually came from another company after my cousin was going through had his eulogy and all that stuff done. So we got these shirts from a company that donated the proceeds to his wife. She's also on the podcast, and my cousin Christy, she's also on the podcast, and also my cousin Christy's husband, because he was close with Billy as well. That's how that got started, and then we started getting more people that were talking about mental health, and we felt like that was a very big issue and a very big topic to talk about, and something that we should dive into, and something that we can try to help you guys overcome, and maybe get you the help you need, or maybe connect you with the right people somehow, because we have done a lot of interviews with different organizations that deal with mental health and help people, so we can kind of get you guys those helps, whether it's anonymous or whether it's through the departments or whatever the case may be. That's what we do, and we interview people, and we've done pretty good, and we just started. What was it? January 1st of this year.
Well, I appreciate everything y'all do to bring light to first responders and mental health from both sides of the spectrum here.
You're definitely welcome, and we definitely would welcome you onto the podcast, Emily. You too, Irish. We definitely would like to hear your story. We would like to, talk about it, and you don't have to go into depth about everything, but you could just kind of touch on some things and just tell your story and just let people know.
Oh well, believe me, I've probably got enough stories to fill a couple podcasts. I mean, it's something that I've dealt with, personally, in my personal life. It's something I've dealt with professionally. It's definitely let's just say I'm glad that I've got the support system that I've got now, so I can be sitting here talking to everybody about this and getting the word out there, because last few years been pretty rough, but yeah, I've definitely got some stories for some podcasts when it comes to the mental health side of stuff.
Yeah, and once you get on the podcast, you don't have to worry about what you say. So, I mean,
Right.
Anything we show on the TikTok, it's always usually the cleaner stuff. But if we do clips and stuff, but as far as the podcast, I mean, you're pretty much open to be an open book if you want it. It's pretty. I'm pretty compassionate. I normally was not a very social person until after my cousin was no longer with us, and then all of a sudden I just exploded, and I felt like I had to do something, and I had to speak out, and because you guys are people, and you guys have families that love you, and you guys, they want you to come home. And they don't want you to harm yourselves, or they don't want you to suffer in silence. My cousin wasn't that way, but that was just what the podcast started to evolve into from what it was originally intended. Because it's a very important issue for you guys, right? It's so important because you guys are important to us. Without you, we could not have safety. We would have chaos because we already know how people are. People can do some really ugly things to other people, and without having law enforcement, without having fire, without having our corrections officers and our dispatchers, there would be utter chaos in this world. You guys are very important to us.
I threw one more resource in the bottom of the chat there. It's called Reboot for First Responders. So it's more of a group therapy style. So it's and it's got a lot of like religion based stuff. So if somebody's looking for, more of a group style where they can build another network of people, it's also led by first responders. So it's really a cool program.
Right.
There's another one, and I'm gonna throw it down in the put the name of it down in the bottom. They're called Warrior's Heart. It was started by a former Las Vegas Metro police officer and her husband. Her husband was a veteran. He was in the Army, served in Iraq and Afghanistan. She was Las Vegas Metro Police. They also focus on substance abuse on top of the mental health. I guess their story is, I met them. I personally know them. My ex-wife was working on her psychology degree and was looking to go work with them because they treat veterans in law enforcement. They're excellent people, but basically she quit her job as a police officer to help start this organization because of what they were going through, because of his mental health issues, which led to his substance abuse. They just weren't finding resources that could really, they felt like could get to the root of the problem. So they started Warrior's Heart. I believe they have a couple different facilities around the country. The one that I went to and toured was in Bandera, Texas, which is a little outside of San Antonio. It's like a huge complex. They have them doing different things, metalworking, tending horses. They've got dog kennels out there. They bring out dogs, let them work with dogs, especially any officers that were canine handlers. They have these dogs out here that they can work with. But they do both outpatient and residential treatment. And again, they focus on both the substance abuse and the mental health aspect of it.
Right.
Because let's be honest, a lot of that is intertwined. You start getting co-diagnosis with some of that. You got somebody that's got PTSD that can't shake the nightmares, can't sleep, whatever. Or I'm gonna have a little drink to help with that, and it starts spiraling out, and the mental health issues start leading to the self-medication, and so they work on both those aspects of it. But I think, as I know for a fact, they have one in Bandera, Texas. I think their original campus was somewhere in Arizona, and I think they've opened up a third or possibly a fourth since the last time I talked to them. But Warrior's Heart is the name of it. I dropped it down in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote it down on my notes here. We generally would keep all of these in hand so that we can refer people if they reach out to us. We could refer them to some of these organizations so that they can get help if they need it. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you guys have heard of the police summit that's coming up in Las Vegas in September by Wounded Blue.
No.
I have not.
They're doing a police summit and conference. They're doing a podcast road. There's a good likely possibility that we will be there. We were invited, and so we're trying to get the details worked out on that, but we most likely will be there to cover that broadcast at the summit.
That's a big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you. That'll be huge for the podcast to hear a lot of other officer stories as well, especially hearing them live they'll be on stage talking about, a lot of the stuff that we talked about here, mental health and how to stay alive and how to get help and all that good stuff. So it'll be educational as well for all of us. It'll be something that we can bring back to our listeners and just kind of share that with them and to, just to kind of give them an outlet. And that's kind of what our podcast is about too, is kind of giving an outlet to our first responders so that they can unload a lot of that stuff that they carry, and they could just let it out, and other people can hear it. And the great thing about it is when other people hear, they can understand you better and understand that you guys are human and you carry a lot of weight. You know what I mean? You guys aren't superhuman. You're not Superman. You're not made of steel. You're normal people that have a high stakes job, and you don't do it for the money. You do it because you love your community and you want to help people. And that's why we do what we do.
And I know I appreciate it. I'm glad that there's people out there willing to talk about it. I noticed it's becoming a more prominent issue. I was in the military, joined the military in the late 90s, early 2000s. Got out right before everything started in Iraq and Afghanistan, so I missed all that, but got into law enforcement a couple of years after that, and I've noticed a big shift since I was on all this till now when it comes to mental health in law enforcement and in the military. I'm your age. I'm 47. So when I joined the military at 20, mental health was never talked about. It wasn't a thing. And same thing when I got into law enforcement in 2007, mental health was not talked about. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't a thing. We didn't talk about it. We didn't bring it up. And in the last 20 years, I've seen it come more to the forefront, and I'm glad it has. But there's still more people that don't want to talk about it than there are that want to talk about it. So I'm really appreciative that I can find resources like this podcast, just to get it out there, talk about it. I stumbled on your page. Again, my wife, she's a night shifter. She was on TikTok just going to different law enforcement lives and stuff. And ran into you or somebody that watches this or something. And she mentioned it a couple weeks ago or a month ago that we, might be getting an invite to do a podcast. Asked me if I was okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I found her TikTok handle is Fire and Ice 219. So she kind of stumbled upon this and sent me the information. And then you started following me and I started following you. But just seeing this getting out there and getting more attention, is something that I'm absolutely thrilled about and can absolutely get behind. So I will probably definitely be contacting you about being on your podcast again. I could talk about this for days. I could probably do several podcasts with you just because this is something that's important to me. It's touched me personally. It's touched me professionally. I don't think there's enough emphasis put on it. So I mean, this might turn into me being a nuisance to you and wanting to be on your show every other week or something. But
that's fine with me.
Turn into your co-host or something. No, I ain't got time for that. I'm too busy for that. I got a 7-year-old. I ain't got time for all that. But
yeah.
But listen, my phone's about to die. I'm down to about 2% here, so I'm going to jump off.
Yeah. We're getting ready to wrap it up. It's getting pretty late. I really appreciate all of you coming on 8158 podcast. If you go to the link in our bio, you can click on there and it will take you to our podcast link. You could schedule to there, or I could private message you to set up a free interview, and also the link to the podcast. What do they call that? I don't know all the technical jargon. That's why I have Brianne as my productions manager. She does all that stuff. Website. Okay. Sorry.
The link in our bio takes you to the website, and then if you go on to schedule an interview, that's where you go to the calendar.
Yeah, it'll run you through a pre-interview so we can gather up some questions to ask you, and whatever you don't feel comfortable with talking about, we won't talk about it. So, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get off of here. We really appreciate and love everybody that's been on here. Thank you very much. This is 8158 podcast. And also we had Tyler from the Debrief. Check him out if you haven't been listening. Thank you, Emily, for coming here. Chris, talk to you later, brother. Yeah, don't forget, Emily, get on there. You better schedule.
I'm going.
I'm holding you to it. You better do it.
I got you. Have a great night, y'all.
You too. Thank you. Bye.